Hey everyone, welcome back. Today it's a holiday-worthy meatloaf with berries baked in. Beef goes into a glass bowl with an egg cracked on top. A good round of pink salt gets ground over the bowl. Seasoning goes on to the meat itself before anything else joins the party, since salt needs time and contact to work its way through 2 pounds of beef. Black pepper follows, cracked fresh over the meat, because pepper straight from the grinder still has all its aroma. The jarred stuff lost that fight months ago. Next, a tablespoon of mustard goes into the bowl, bringing a quiet tang that will keep this rich loaf from tasting flat. Now a bunch of parsley gets chopped down fine. Fresh herbs in a meatloaf aren't decoration. They're the counterweight, since ground beef with egg and bread can eat heavy, and these green flecks cut through that richness in every single bite. Chop the parsley smaller than feels necessary, because tiny pieces spread further through the mix, which means the freshness lands everywhere instead of clumping in a few lucky slices while the rest of the loaf misses out. The parsley goes into the bowl, and a gloved hand works everything together. The hand beats the spoon for this job every time. You can feel when the egg has fully worked through the meat, when the seasoning has spread, and when the texture turns uniform and tacky, which is the kind of read no utensil in the drawer is ever going to give you. Over at the stove, vegetable oil goes into the pan and starts to warm, because this loaf gets a proper sautéed base of onion, garlic, and herbs before it ever sees the oven. Flavor you can't get from raw. A piece of butter joins the oil and melts through it. 2 fats splitting the work. Same trusted setup. The oil holds the temperature up so nothing scorches, and the butter donates that round, nutty flavor the vegetables are about to soak in. Now an onion gets chopped down fine on the board. I swear, the smell of onions frying in butter is the most universal welcome home signal there is. Growing up, I could tell from the driveway whether dinner was started just by catching that smell through the kitchen window. And it worked better than any dinner bell ever could. Fine dice is the right call for a meatloaf, since the pieces soften through in the pan and then vanish into the meat, sweetening the whole loaf from the inside. The onion goes into the pan, and I stir it through the warm butter and oil. That soft, steady sizzle settles in right away. The sound of moisture leaving and sweetness building, the pan doing exactly the quiet work this stage of a good meatloaf is supposed to do. A little while later, I come back for a stir, and there's the color. The onion has turned that deep golden shade we were waiting on. Now the garlic. 3 whole heads chopped down fine. And yes, that's a serious amount of knife work, so let's use the time. A dish like this one, with the berries and the sauce coming later, always feels like a holiday plate to me. Which brings me to my question for you today. What was the dish your family made only for special occasions? The one that meant a birthday, a homecoming, or a table full of relatives? Every family had one, whether it was a roast, a casserole, or something nobody else's house ever made. Tell me about yours in the comments below, because those recipes are exactly the kind of cooking this channel is all about. All the chopped garlic goes into the pan, and I stir it through the golden onion. Garlic needs barely a minute in hot fat to turn fragrant, and it will carry that aroma into the meat with it. Next, 2 sprigs of rosemary. and I strip the needles off the woody stems. Those stems are tough enough to survive the oven untouched, so nothing from them belongs in the loaf. Just the needles, where all the piney flavor actually lives. A few sprigs of thyme get the same treatment, stripped off the stems, and then both herbs get chopped down together on the board. Thyme and rosemary are one of the oldest working partnerships in the kitchen, and there's a reason cooks keep pairing them with beef. Rosemary brings the big, piney statement. Thyme fills in underneath with a soft, earthy warmth, and together they cover both ends of the herb spectrum without stepping on each other. One herb alone can dominate a loaf, but this duo balances itself out, which is why it shows up in kitchens from France to your grandmother's. The chopped herbs go into the pan, and one stir wakes them up. Within seconds, that rosemary and thyme smell blooms out of the warm butter and takes over every corner of the kitchen, the way dried herbs from a jar never quite manage to do. A round of pink salt goes over the pan, seasoning this vegetable base directly while it's still working in the heat. Black pepper cracks over the top, landing in the hot fat where its flavor spreads the furthest. A teaspoon of smoked paprika goes in, and I stir it through the whole pan. Here's what makes this spice special. Real smoked paprika is made from peppers dried slowly over oak fires, so it carries genuine smoke, not some imitation flavor from a lab. 1 teaspoon gives this loaf a low barbecue note that will have people asking whether the meat spent time in a smoker. The finished golden mixture goes straight into the bowl of beef. Now for the bread. 4 slices of toast bread lose their crusts, get cut into small cubes, and land in a separate glass bowl. This is the start of what chefs call a panade, and it's the science that separates tender meatloaf from dense meatloaf. Soaked bread holds moisture inside the meat like millions of tiny sponges, and its soft structure keeps the beef proteins from binding into a tight brick as they cook. Skip the bread, and you get something closer to a giant hamburger. With it, every slice stays soft and juicy. About half a cup of milk goes over the bread cubes, and a gloved hand works them together until every piece is soaked through and falling apart. Milk adds a touch of richness along with the moisture, but here's a handy swap if the carton is empty. Broth does the same soaking job with a more savory result, and plenty of old-school cooks actually prefer it. Use whichever your fridge offers. The bread just needs liquid to become that soft paste. The soaked bread goes into the bowl with the beef, and the gloved hand brings it all together. One warning here, and it matters. Mix only until everything is combined, then walk away, because every extra minute of working ground beef tightens its proteins, and overworked meat bakes into a dense, springy loaf no amount of sauce can rescue. The moment you stop seeing streaks of bread, the mixing is done. Resist the urge to keep going. And now the signature move. About 10 ounces of cranberries, lingonberries, and red currants go into the bowl, and the hand folds them through the meat. Sharp berries against rich beef is a combination the Swedes figured out generations ago, and it works. Which brings me to my second question for you. Is cranberry sauce strictly a Thanksgiving guest at your table, or does it earn a spot year-round? Drop your answer in the comments. I have a feeling this one splits the room. A baking sheet gets lined with parchment paper and a pour of vegetable oil, and the berry-studded meat mixture comes out of the bowl and takes its place right in the middle of the sheet. Gloved hands now shape the meat into one long, rounded log. The touch here should be firm enough to close the surface, but no firmer, because packing a meatloaf tight squeezes out the air pockets that keep it tender, and all that pressure bakes into a heavy slice. Smooth the sides, round off the top so it cooks uniformly, and into the oven it goes at 360 degrees for about 40 minutes. Time for the sauce. Into a small pot go cranberries, lingonberries, red currants, and cherries, about 10 ounces of mixed berries all together. 2 full tablespoons of sugar go down over the berries, opening the balance against all that sharpness waiting in the pot. A teaspoon of dried ginger follows right behind, adding a warm little spark underneath all that fruit. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon goes in. Everything gets a stir, and the lid goes on for 5 minutes over low heat. Cinnamon is the oldest trick in the book for berry sauces, a spice traded across oceans for thousands of years, and even this small dose wraps the fruit in warmth, turning a simple berry pot into something that smells like a holiday about to happen. The lid comes off, and look at the change. The berries have collapsed into a glossy, deep red pool, popping and releasing their juices into the sugar and spices. One good stir brings it together, and the smell alone could sell this sauce. A tablespoon of balsamic vinegar goes in, sharpening the sauce with a dark, tangy edge. 2 tablespoons of honey follow, stirred through the pot. This sauce is a balancing act between 4 corners: sour berries, sweet honey and sugar, sharp balsamic, warm spice. And honey does more than sweeten. It rounds the edges off the vinegar and the fruit acid, pulling every flavor toward the middle where they all meet. A piece of butter goes into the pot, and I stir it through as it melts. This is a classic saucier's finish, and watch what it does. The butter emulsifies into the fruit juices and turns the whole sauce glossy, thicker on the spoon, with a velvet edge to the flavor. Restaurant sauces get their shine exactly this way. 1 piece of butter at the end, stirred until it disappears. Now about 2/3 of a cup of broth goes into the pot. A good long stir brings everything together, and the lid goes back on for 10 minutes over low heat. The broth loosens the thick fruit down to proper sauce consistency, so it will pour over the meat instead of sitting on top of it like a spread. After the simmer, the lid comes off for 1 more stir, then goes back on, and the heat shuts off, because this sauce wants to cool down a little. Flavors settle and the texture sets as the temperature drops. A few minutes later, the lid comes off, and 1 final stir of the spoon gets the sauce ready for the last step. A sieve goes over a glass bowl, and the whole pot of sauce gets poured out over it, ready to be worked through the mesh. The spoon works the berries against the sieve, pressing the pulp and juices through into the bowl below, and then the sieve comes away. This step is what separates rustic from refined. The skins and seeds stay behind in the mesh, and what lands in the bowl is a smooth, glossy sauce with all the fruit flavor and none of the texture arguments. The sauce is done. The meatloaf comes out of the oven, browned and smelling incredible, and I slice it down into thick pieces. Look at those berries scattered through the meat like little rubies. Holidays at my house growing up meant a table extended with a folding piece, nobody's tablecloth quite covered, relatives packed shoulder to shoulder, and 1 big centerpiece dish coming out of the kitchen to actual applause. That's the memory I cook this loaf for, because some dishes aren't really about feeding people. They're about giving everyone a reason to sit down at the same table at the same time. Four thick slices go down onto the plate, laid out in a neat row with the berries showing in every single cut face. The smooth berry sauce pours over the top, running down the sides of the slices in that deep, glossy red. The finishing touch this loaf was built for. One bite, juicy meat, sharp berries, warm, spiced sauce. Subscribe if this belongs on your table. See you next time.